Your dollar is worth 87% less than it was in 1971. Your parents bought a house in Toronto for $25,000. Today, try $1.2 million. Same house, different numbers. And if you think that's just inflation, you're about to discover something far more terrifying. There's a pattern that's destroyed every single superpower in human history. Not war, not invasion, not even revolution. Economic collapse, specifically currency collapse. And here's the scary part. It happens the exact same way, every single time. Rome dominated for 500 years until its currency became worthless. Spain controlled more gold than anyone, went bankrupt 4 times. Britain ruled a quarter of the planet, lost it all in 30 years. 4 empires, 4 collapses, 1 identical pattern. And right now in 2025, the United States and Canada are following that exact same playbook, step by step, warning sign by warning sign. The only question is, are we at the beginning, the middle, or the end? The Roman lesson, when silver turned to trash. Let me take you back to Rome, 200 AD. You're a soldier stationed at Hadrian's Wall. You've just received your month's pay, 50 denarius coins, pure silver. You can feel the weight in your hand. That's real money, real value. Fast forward 65 years, same job, same border. You get paid the same 50 denarii, but something's different. The coins feel lighter. They look off. You bite one, the silver coating chips away, revealing cheap copper underneath. You've been scammed, and not by some street hustler, by your own government. Here's what happened. Rome got expensive. Every emperor wanted a bigger military, grander buildings, more bread and circuses for the people. But there was a problem. They were spending way more than they were earning. So, Emperor Nero had a brilliant idea. Why not just make more coins? He reduced the silver content from 100% to 90%. Then Caracalla dropped it to 50%. By 265 AD, Roman coins were 95% worthless metal with just a thin silver coating. Imagine working your entire life, saving denarius coins, planning for retirement, and then discovering your savings are worth 1/20th of what you thought. That's not a recession. That's economic murder. And here's what Americans and Canadians need to understand. This wasn't caused by barbarians at the gates. Rome was still militarily strong. This was suicide, self-inflicted. The Roman government destroyed its own currency to fund spending it couldn't afford. When the currency died, everything died with it. Farmers refused to sell food for worthless coins. Soldiers abandoned their posts because their pay meant nothing. By 476 AD, Rome was finished. The pattern was set. Spain's gold curse. How infinite wealth led to bankruptcy. Now, jump ahead to 1545. Spanish conquistadors discover Cerro Rico, a mountain in Bolivia that's literally made of silver. We're talking about the largest silver deposit in human history. For the next 100 years, ships filled with silver cross the Atlantic. Spain becomes filthy rich. The Spanish dollar becomes the world's first global currency. Spain should have been unstoppable, right? Wrong. Because here's what most people don't understand about money. Having more of it doesn't make you richer if everyone has more of it. Spain flooded Europe with so much silver that prices exploded. What cost 1 coin in 1500 cost 10 coins by 1600. The silver wasn't fake. There was just too much of it. But the real problem? Spain wasn't actually producing anything. They were just digging up wealth and spending it on wars, palaces, and imported luxury goods from France and England. The silver flowed in from the Americas and immediately flowed back out to other countries. And then came the debt. King Philip II inherited 36 million ducats in debt. Did he cut spending? Nope. He borrowed more, fought more wars. And when he couldn't pay it back, he declared bankruptcy in 1557, and then again in 1560, and in 1595, and in 1596. 4 bankruptcies in 40 years, despite controlling half the world's silver production. Think about that. The richest empire on earth couldn't pay its bills. For Americans and Canadians watching this, here's the lesson. Spain proved that you can't print or mine your way to prosperity. Real wealth comes from production, innovation, and sustainable economics, not from magic mountains or printing presses. By 1700, Spain was essentially done. The empire that once ruled the world had spent itself into irrelevance. Britain's fall. From global superpower to IMF bailout. Now we get to Britain, the empire that lasted the longest and fell the hardest. In 1922, Britain controlled 458 million people, a quarter of the world's population, a quarter of all land on Earth. The sun literally never set on British territory. And the pound sterling, it was the global currency. For over 200 years, 60% of world trade was invoiced in pounds. It was backed by gold, stable, trusted, powerful. But then came World War I. In 1914, Britain's national debt was $650 million. By 1919, over $7 billion, a tenfold increase in 5 years. To fund the war, Britain did something desperate. They left the gold standard. They started printing money. The pound became a fiat currency, backed by nothing but the government's promise. After the war, Winston Churchill tried to put Britain back on gold in 1925. Terrible decision. The pound was overvalued, exports crashed, unemployment soared. By 1931, Britain was forced off gold permanently. Then came World War II, which absolutely destroyed Britain financially. By 1945, national debt hit 270% of GDP. The country was bankrupt. In 1944, at the Bretton Woods Conference, the world officially replaced the British pound with the US dollar as the reserve currency. The empire disintegrated fast. India gained independence in 1947. Egypt nationalized the Suez Canal in 1956. Colony after colony broke away. By the 1970s, Britain was in freefall. Inflation hit 25%. The government had to beg the IMF for a bailout, like a third world country. The empire that once ruled a quarter of the planet lost it all within 30 years, not through military defeat, through currency collapse and debt. For Canadians especially, this hits close to home. Canada was part of that empire. The British pound was your currency's anchor. When Britain fell, Canada had to completely restructure its economic identity. Which brings us to today, the United States, the current empire, the current reserve currency. And every single warning sign that destroyed Rome, Spain, and Britain is flashing red right now. Let me break down the 7-stage pattern and show you exactly where America is. Stage 1, dominance. After World War II, the US dollar became the global standard through Bretton Woods. It was backed by gold, $35 per ounce. The dollar was literally as good as gold. Stage 2, overextension. The U.S. maintains nearly 800 military bases in over 70 countries. Defense spending, over $800 billion annually. Wars in Iraq and Afghanistan cost over $8 trillion. Stage 3, deficit spending. America runs trillion-dollar deficits every single year, even during economic growth. In 1980, U.S. debt was $900 million. Today, in 2025, over $36 trillion. That's a 40-fold increase in 45 years. Stage 4, currency debasement. In 1971, Nixon closed the gold window. The dollar became pure fiat currency, just like the debased Roman denarius. Since 2008, the Federal Reserve has created trillions of dollars from nothing. During COVID alone, over $4 trillion printed in 2 years. Stage 5, inflation. We are here. Official inflation hit 9% in 2022, but real inflation, the prices Americans and Canadians actually pay for food, housing, healthcare, is far higher. In Toronto, average rent is up 35% since 2020. In New York, a basic grocery trip costs 50% more than 3 years ago. Stage 6, loss of confidence, beginning now. In 2000, over 70% of global reserves were held in dollars. Today, 58% and falling. The BRICS nations are actively building alternatives. China and Russia are buying gold aggressively. Central banks worldwide are diversifying out of dollars. In stage 7, collapse. This is the unknown. History says it's coming. The math says it's inevitable. The only question is how fast and how painful. What this means for Americans and Canadians. Here's what people in the US and Canada need to understand. For Americans, you're living in the empire at the peak. The dollar is still the reserve currency, but that protection is eroding. When Rome's denarius collapsed, it affected Rome. When the dollar collapses, it affects the entire world. Your savings, your 401k, your home value, all denominated in a currency that's being systematically debased. For Canadians, you're economically tied to America. 75% of Canadian exports go to the US. The Canadian dollar is essentially pegged to the US dollar. When the US sneezes, Canada catches pneumonia. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Canada is following the same pattern on a smaller scale. Canadian federal debt has tripled since 2008. Housing prices have become completely detached from wages. The Bank of Canada printed money aggressively during COVID. Both countries are on the same trajectory. The 3 possible endings. History gives us 3 scenarios. Option 1. Controlled decline, like Britain after 1945. Lose reserve currency status. Experience painful inflation and devaluation, but survive as a second-tier power. Painful, but not apocalyptic. Option 2. Chaotic collapse, like Rome in the 5th century. Currency becomes worthless. Government loses control. System fragments. This is the nightmare scenario. Option 3. Reset and restructure. A new currency system emerges. Maybe backed by gold again, maybe a basket of currencies, maybe digital currencies. The old system dies, but something new replaces it relatively quickly. The US debt cannot be repaid at current levels. The only options are default, inflation, or restructuring. Default would destroy dollar hegemony instantly. Inflation is already happening and will likely accelerate. Restructuring requires political will that doesn't exist. The pattern never lies. 4 empires, 4 collapses, 4 identical sequences. Rome debased its currency to pay legions. The denarius died, the empire fell. Spain flooded the world with silver. Inflation destroyed wealth. The empire declined. Britain borrowed to fight 2 world wars. The pound collapsed. The empire dissolved. And now the United States prints trillions, runs endless deficits, and believes it's different. It's not different. The pattern doesn't care about American exceptionalism. It doesn't care about military strength or Silicon Valley innovation. Economic laws are as absolute as physical laws. You cannot print wealth. You cannot borrow forever. And you cannot debase your currency without destroying your empire. The only question is timing. How long until the world loses confidence in the dollar? The pattern says we're close. The debt says we're close. The money printing says we're close. And history, which has watched this exact sequence 4 times before, says the ending is inevitable. For Americans and Canadians watching this, you're not observers of history. You're living through it, right now, in real time. The question isn't whether the pattern completes. History has already answered that. The question is, what are you going to do about it? If this gave you a completely new perspective on what's happening to your money, your savings, and your future, hit that subscribe button. Because when this pattern completes, you'll want to understand exactly what happened and why. The empires always believe they're different. They're always wrong. And the pattern never lies.